Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of A Girl's Guide to STEAM. I'm here with
Halle, Sherman,
and
Gina, Guerrera.
And today we are going to be talking to both of these amazing women about their inspirational careers, as well as the topic of ballet and STEAM, since they are both instructors at the Huntsville Ballet. And we are also going to dive into tips and tricks and advice for young women who are interested in a STEAM career. So let's dive in, full steam ahead. Hello, ladies. How are y'all?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here.
Same. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited that you are here. And so why don't we just start off a little bit and tell us about yourselves?
So I am a chemist and I work in a forensic laboratory. I have a chemistry degree, Bachelor's of Science from the University of Connecticut, and then I have a Master's in Forensic Science from the University of New Haven. And as you said, I am an instructor and then also choreographer at Huntsville Ballet.
Ah, awesome.
I'm a professional ballet dancer with Huntsville Ballet Company, as well as being an instructor at Huntsville Ballet School. And I am also on the outreach and education team run through Huntsville Ballet. And I also have a degree in a Bachelor's of Applied Arts and Sciences from the University of Pennsylvania.
Awesome. What was your experience with dance from a young age? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I was very young when I started. I was about 3. The reason I had started dance is actually when I was born, one of my feet was actually turned in. It wasn't like super severe or anything. I just had to wear certain shoes to help, them balance out and whatnot. And a doctor told my mom, hey, put her in dance. That will really help, with turning her feet out and putting everything back in the correct position. So my mom put me in dance, and I'm still dancing now, so yeah, I enjoyed it. That's how I got into it, and I never left. So
I love it. What about you, Halle?
So for me, there's a little backstory here. My mom is actually a ballet dancer, and she was on Broadway, and so when she had me, she said, I don't want her to be a ballet dancer because I don't want to end up on Oprah in the future with her telling Oprah how much she hates ballet and she hates me. So she made me try every activity under the sun. Very quickly we learned outside activities like sports were not good, could not handle the weather. But I did, just to try it, just to say that she did it, I did do ballet class from the time that I was 3 years old. And I decided pretty early on in my life that I wanted to be a ballet dancer. I was 9 years old, and Pennsylvania Ballet was doing George Balanchine's A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I was chosen to be the changeling child. And it was that moment on that I was like, this is amazing, and I want to do this every night for the rest of my life. Get out on that stage and dance.
Wow.
So I knew ballet was for me then.
That's awesome for both of you, just hearing your story with getting started in dance, because I know that there's no one singular path to getting into it, but it's great once you finally, that spark goes off. It's very hard to leave, and so that's so great. Well, ladies, why don't you tell me a little bit about your college and early career journey?
So at first I wasn't sure what I wanted to do as far as what major I wanted to go into and whatnot. I think it's hard to decide sometimes when you're coming right out of high school. But I was decent in chemistry, and I really enjoyed, watching CSI shows and putting puzzles together, things of that nature. And I decided to go the chemistry route. My father, he's a chemist, and he encouraged it, hey, if this is, if you want to do forensics, go for chemistry. It's such a broad degree. You can kind of go a number of different places with that. And I went and I pursued chemistry at UConn, and I actually excelled in it and really enjoyed it, believe it or not, chemistry. And from there, I ended up going and getting my master's in forensic science at the University of New Haven, and being there just confirmed for me that that's what I really wanted to do, was to be involved in forensics. I learned a lot of new skills and what it would kind of be like to work in a forensic laboratory, and I just decided that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Halle, what about you?
So for me, I kind of did it backwards. With ballet, you really have to pursue it 100% of the time. And since I knew it was what I wanted to do, I went full force. And I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I attended Pennsylvania Ballet School. And so at the end of my last year, I was accepted into Pennsylvania Ballet too. And I was like, this is great, but now I would like to pursue a degree as well, as many of the dancers in Pennsylvania Ballet were also pursuing degrees at the time. I looked into the University of Pennsylvania because they had a great program where adults that worked a 9 to 5 could come in the evenings and get a full-on degree from UPenn, just like anybody that was there from 9 to 5 during the day. So I applied, and I thankfully got in, and I was like, this is great, this is fantastic. My degree originally started out as a Bachelor's of Arts degree. That was it. However, my journey in ballet, I grew up in Philadelphia all my life, and I was like, Pennsylvania Ballet was my dream company, but I want to see if I can recreate it elsewhere. And so I auditioned around, and I ended up here in Huntsville, which I love so, so much, but my full-time degree on campus could not go with me. I was like, I'm going to have to figure that out. And they created an online program where people could do the degree fully online. And I was like, this is the program for me. And when researching it, they had a physical and life sciences major. And I said, that sounds like me. I did not want to pursue anything with English and literature. It was not for me. I wanted to really get into the math and science and neuroscience, and that's what I pursued.
Yeah.
While dancing full time.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know that both of y'all are current instructors at Huntsville Ballet, and so I guess how did you continue your dancing during your time of pursuing your degree? How was that experience for you?
It was hard sometimes. You know, when you go to college, you're expected to get your degree. You know, that's what you're there for. But I did find a student-run organization that did dance, and they did choreography, and they did 2 shows a year. Okay. And I found that was a great place for me, where it wasn't too much, it wasn't too overwhelming, but it was a really good balance for me, where I could still, you know, have my outlet, and then also be along other dancers that were kind of walking the same path as me, similar majors, and having that same kind of demand on them as far as work and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome, having that balance there, so that way you can still continue your pursuit of dance as well as continuing your education. And what about you, Halle?
So for me, at Huntsville Ballet, I would work 9 to 2 or 3 with rehearsals and class, and then I would have a very short little break where I'd get in some work, some schoolwork, and then I would turn back around and get ready to teach or rehearse again or take class, because work as a ballet dancer never stops. You should always keep improving upon yourself. And then I'd go home in the evening and do more schoolwork, and then go to sleep and wake up and do it all over again.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was a very difficult process, especially doing something as adventurous as neuroscience. Online, it was very difficult, and it definitely was a lot of work, but it was very worth it and very rewarding in the end.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool that both of you have that passion for dance as well as the passion for the careers or degrees specifically in STEM. Okay, so why don't you tell me a little bit about your early career journey?
When I graduated, I got my master's in forensics, and in the forensic world, they kind of tell you right off the bat, hey, you have to be open to moving and going other places out of state, because there aren't many jobs in it, you know, and I was very open to it. And I received a job offer here in Huntsville, Alabama, and I wasn't too sure at first, you know, but my parents, they were really supportive about it, and they said, you know, look, you hate it, you come back. And I decided to take a risk, and I moved down to Alabama, and here I am now. I absolutely love it. But my first year here, it was a little difficult. You know, you don't know anyone, especially being 1,000 miles away, and I still felt like I was missing something because I wasn't involved in dance. I wasn't teaching or anything like that. And I had put my resume in with a couple other studios that I had seen around, and they didn't seem to have a need for it. And then kind of out of nowhere, I made a connection with someone who knew Philip Otto, who's the artistic director at Huntsville Ballet, and they were looking for a jazz contemporary teacher as well as some tap. And I met with him and talked with him and showed him some of my past stuff, and they hired me, and I had some trial stuff over the summer, but I just knew that once I jumped back into it, I felt normal. You know, I felt everything was where it needed to be, you know, and God is so faithful that he worked that out the way he did. It's kind of cool how that happened, but it really did normalize everything for me, being far away from home and doing something that I knew. I really, really knew, you know, with my other job, it was still a little new, you know, you're learning the people and learning the skills on the job and training and things like that. So, yeah.
Some bit of normalcy.
Yes.
And comfort.
Yes.
I love that. What about you, Halle?
So with ballet, each contract only lasts a year, and you either have to be renewed or you have to go find a new job. For me, at Pennsylvania Ballet too, I was renewed, but since I grew up there and that was all I ever knew, and that was the dream, I thought to myself, I want to see if I can recreate this again with a different ballet company. And I emailed Mr. Otto in April, many years ago. I'm not going to go backwards and count. And he very thankfully offered me to come down here and audition for him, and I did. And he very kindly offered me a job. And Mr. Otto and Miss Rachel are fantastic, and I love them, and I have loved every second of being here at Huntsville Ballet. And I continued my schooling while being here, as well as I became an instructor at Huntsville Ballet School, and it's been the most positive learning experience, not only learning how to teach, but it helps me learn about myself as a dancer. And about halfway through my time here, Kathy Curry, who is Huntsville Ballet's Director of Outreach and Education, quote-unquote, scouted me to be part of the outreach and education team. She was like, you seem like you have a gift for this, and trained me up. And this past year, I got my own outreach location at one of the local schools where I go all by myself and teach a science lesson with art through dance.
I love it. How do you think that you are able to use the information that you learned in your STEM field, such as maybe being analytical or that analytical thinking, the sort of process of trial and error? How do you think that that kind of works with your current dance situation?
I am technically called an analytical chemist in the forensic world, and when you talk about analytical thinking, I think it very much falls on the path of when you're teaching and choreographing in dance. And you know, analytical, you're taking facts and you're evaluating your situation, and then, you know, if something doesn't work out, you know, you have to reevaluate and try something new. And I find, especially with choreographing, that you have students that have different strengths, different weaknesses. You know, they're not all the same height or you know, have the same skills and things like that. And, you know, when you're asked to have, say, you know, this select amount of dancers and come up with a piece from that, you know, you kind of have to visualize, where can I put this person, or where can I use these skills that they have? You know, you want to make sure that they look good up there as well. Halle knows, you know, I give them choreography sometimes, and a couple weeks later I'll say, you know, I really don't like that. I would like to change that, you know, and you try something new. But I think there's a lot of different things, you know, with the science background. You know, sometimes you have to make some adjustments. Mm-hmm. We have certain instruments that we use in the lab where, you know, you have to change a setting in it to change your output. And that's very similar to what we're doing in the studio.
Yeah. What about you, Halle?
So for me, I come at it from a couple of different perspectives. As a dancer, you're given 8 counts. Everything is done in counts of 8. And how do you get from point A to point B and make it look graceful within the choreography is always on my mind, and making sure that these counts work. And sometimes composers put in a questionable 13 counts. And what do you do with 13 counts? And how do you get the choreography to match 13 counts and stretch it out from 8? But as well as when you're teaching young children, not everybody learns the same. Not all children don't learn the same. Adults certainly don't learn the same. So how do you approach something in a way that it'll reach everybody? Some kids, they're very mathematic based, and it's 2 + 2 simply just does not equal 5. Mm. And others are a very visual learner, and they need to understand how the brain connects to your parts of the body and how it flows and everything, as well as I put my degree to good use in the outreach and education program as well, because a lot of our lessons are science-based. So I work in 3 different ways.
Wow. Well, speaking of which, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Let's dive in some STEAM right here, STEAM talk. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
So with the outreach and education that we do, we go to local schools in and around the Huntsville, Madison area, and we bring either our creative curriculum to our itty bitty babies or our science-based lessons, and we have like a weather series as well as more of a force, friction, and magnet series, which happens to be my favorite. So with like a group of 3rd grade, we'll see, it's the residency of somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks, and we'll see 3 to 5 classes of 3rd grade at a time.
Okay.
It's a lot of classes.
Oh, gosh.
But we'll go in, and with something like force, we explain what force is and how it works and the different types of forces. You can have balanced, unbalanced, and there's push and pull. Mm-hmm. And so they learn a little bit about what it is. And then we all stand up and we demonstrate how to show balanced and unbalanced forces and push and pull with our bodies. So they'll get in groups of 2 or groups of 3 and have to create different shapes on different levels. And usually at the end there is a little song that we found that goes great with our lesson of the day, and they get to put on a little performance teaching the science lesson through dance. And then they have to bring all that knowledge back for the next lesson next week because they build upon one another.
Oh,
so you can't move on to friction unless you understand force.
Oh, that's super cool.
Thank you. I think so. I'm not the one that came up with it. Kathy Curry did, our director of outreach and education. But she was on to something. It's fantastic.
It is. And Gina, why don't you tell me a little bit about, I know you were talking about how ballet can be analytical. Do you think your experience in dance has kind of inspired creativity towards your field of chemistry, or is there any sort of way that it can vice versa?
Yes. No, I think that being able to come in at something from a different perspective, it makes you look at things a little bit differently. How can I change something that it's going to work in what I need, or, thinking to the future. Okay, these are the steps that if I, complete these steps, I should get to my end goal type of thing. And if you get to that end point, you have to bring it back in and, try something else.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's super cool just hearing that from both of y'all. So why don't you tell me a little bit about if you think that ballet is STEAM? I know it's obviously an art form, but is it STEAM? I know that you were mentioning a little bit about the science lessons that you're talking about, but
yes,
in what other ways do you think it might be STEAM?
I would say a lot of people, when you're sitting in the audience and you're watching a dancer, you're thinking movement. Okay, they're moving around the stage. But I think what people don't think about, and what we have to focus in on the studio is, okay, well, where do I have to put my body so that I can do that movement? I always tell my dancers, especially when working on turns and things like that, it is all physics. How your body is aligned, the distance of your arms from your body, with fouette turns where you have your leg out in the air. Depending on how high or low your leg is going to depend on how fast you're spinning, and getting out of control. There is a lot of physics and that goes into it. As dancers, and Halle knows as a ballet dancer, your job is to make it look easy.
Oh, yeah.
Elegant, beautiful, that is your job, and if an audience can take that away, oh, wow, but the appreciation, I think, comes when you're in the studio and you see the work that actually has to go on, that, oh, wow, she really has to be up on her, on her toe to be turning that many turns, or, we have boys in our studio that can turn forever, and it's just, it's a lot of physics. It's a lot of, obviously, experience and rehearsal, but what do you think, Halle?
I absolutely think that ballet is part of STEAM. Ballet is STEAM in that every single day we are dancing, we are making micro adjustments on the spot to make sure that we stay upright and not fall down. on our faces. One of our directors, Rachel Butler, she always likes to say that the stars are never aligned, meaning that there's never going to be that one perfect show that you are going to get out there and everything is going to go your way. You have to figure out and calculate how to adjust for you being a little bit off your leg. The balance is off. So how do I pull myself back up on my body? It's all, as Gina said, it's all physics and calculating how it's all going to work out. If you're partnering and you're a little bit too far away from your partner, what are you going to do to make up for the distance? How are you going to make that micro adjustment? And you have to decide all of this in a nanosecond, all while pretending like it's easy.
Oh my gosh.
Because 99% of the audience is looking at your face and not your lower half of your body. So you might be freaking out about how many steps you have to take, but you have to do it with a smile on your face. Yay! That's for me. For the children, for when we go into the schools, the children seem to really connect with learning science through art and dance. They really seem to bring it back each week, and it broadens the horizons that ballet is, not just for girls, and that there's so much that they can do with their body to express numbers and weather and force and friction, and that it's not just standing on your toes for hours and hours a day or standing behind a girl holding her up in the air. There's so much to it.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication.
Oh my gosh.
But it's fantastic. The reward is amazing.
Definitely so. I know that whenever I've seen dancers on stage, and back whenever I did ballet, it was very much focused on trying to make it look effortless. And that is so hard trying to do that, though. But being able to constantly think of, okay, how can I make this better? How can I adjust? That's kind of like that sort of scientific method in a way of the trial and error process. And I'm sure that same thing like you were mentioning, Gina, about choreography, that's also a trial and error process as well, because it's totally different in the mind to think, okay, yes, this is going to work. They jump in at this point, but oh no, is that possible to work within those 8 counts? Because choreography, I'm sure, is very analytical, and also having to think about the patterns as well of how people are moving. That's a lot of just math. And also the counts, too. That's a lot of math, physics, geometry, all of that combined.
It is.
So that's a lot of
Well, yeah.
steam.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't really think of it that way, but when you explain it that way, oh, wow, all that actually is going on.
While also trying to make it look pretty. So, Halle, do you think that a point shoe can be considered technology?
Absolutely, yes. So my point shoes, I wear Freed of London point shoes, and they are handmade by a little cobbler in London. However, when this shoe comes in and it's designed custom to my foot measurements and, oh yeah.
Fancy, fancy.
Fancy, fancy. My measurements and where I like it cut, it's still technology, because when I get it, I still have to modify it to make it work for me.
Oh, I see.
My shoe is not going to work for my colleague, and my colleague's shoe is certainly not going to work for me. So I modify the shoe, and it has to be exactly right. Like, it has to be precise at 2 and however many inches is cut down. And I don't remember how many at this point. I keep them the same way for years and years, but the fabric on the side needs to be cut down to a certain length so that I can stand up on the shoe and balance for as long as I physically can.
Wow. That's super cool, though, that a point shoe can be considered technology, because, I mean, I'm just thinking over here, how did people react the first time that point shoes were made? They were like, oh my God, there's somebody dancing on their toes, but they look like they're floating. Like, that's crazy.
Throw in the fact that they're also made of wood and some glue.
Oh, that's gonna hurt.
Not anymore.
Yay! Okay, well, since you both have the degrees in STEM and also are involved in dance, do you think that that makes you a more well-rounded individual in being able to think from both aspects of creative and analytical?
I would say so. I think, You can also understand people a little bit differently, seeing it from two different sides, two different worlds, I would think. I think it helps me. I think it makes me more creative in the lab to kind of branch out. We do a lot of research, and you kind of have to think outside the box sometimes, especially if it doesn't work once, twice, or the 100th time that you've done it. So I do think that it definitely helps me in certain ways. I'm a pretty determined person. I like things to look right, and look the way they're supposed to, and especially in forensics, it has to be done the right way because you have people looking in, and eventually those things go to court, and it has to be done the right way.
So Halle, what do you think are misconceptions about dance and its involvement in STEAM?
There are a lot of misconceptions with dance and its involvement in STEAM. One of the biggest misconceptions is that ballet dancers are not very bright. And we actually are, because we have to use STEAM every single day to calculate how our bodies are going to react to the choreography, or what are we going to do when our bodies just will not work the same as it did the day before, because every day is a new day.
How do you think that dance can be more innovative in the future, since it is a STEAM field?
I think that dance is innovative over the years. I think that it's a constant changing thing. Where shapes and forms, they're changing with time, to what the audience prefers, or how new choreographers are coming in, and they're changing the way they want their dancers to look. And there's also just different choreographers that just have different styles. We have the dance form lyrical. There wasn't really a lot of contemporary. It was the lyrical, and it was very much more ballet and softer. And then you had contemporary kind of come in where you couldn't really categorize the movement. It was just, it was a newer type of movement, different shapes and things like that, or different speeds or rhythms, and contemporary kind of got its own category. Lyrical is still there. I don't think we see it as much now, because contemporary's kind of developed into its own form, in my opinion. But I think it's an ever-changing art form.
Yeah.
So.
I agree with Gina. I think that ballet has just become innovative over the years, and I think one of the great things about Huntsville Ballet itself is that Mr. Otto continually exposes us to something new, something innovative. He tries so hard every year to get us with a new choreographer that will expose us to a new type of dance, or his own choreography evolving. With something like this past season, we did Swan Lake, and he put his own spin on Act 4 himself. He watched the choreography of ballet companies such as ABT and Pacific Northwest Ballet, and came up with his own choreography. And he looked at it from a big picture standpoint, and it was Miss Rachel's job to clean it up and figure out how his big picture could become microseconds within the choreography. So in that way, I also agree that dance is ever changing and always moving forward, always innovative.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great thing that dance is able to become innovative. So I think we're at the point of advice questions. So if someone is per se interested in pursuing a STEAM degree, but also wanting to dance as well, what advice do you have for them, maybe just in general, or to prevent burnout? Because I know that can be a lot.
Yeah, I say do what you love. Certain degrees, it is hard. I think some degrees are probably more demanding than others and things like that. But I think if you really love something, you make it work, and even to try it and just stretch yourself a little bit to just try something, and if it doesn't work, but again, I think that if you love something enough, you'll make it happen. You'll make the time for it, but you also have to be disciplined. And as far as burnout, it can be hard sometimes, but I think you have to be able to balance that mindset. And it's okay to take a break. It's okay to step away from both of them and just say, I need a moment, But I think if you can jump back in it and be proud of something that you're doing, that burnout is not something that's gonna, last forever or be ever demanding. And I just truly think if you're passionate about something, it's not gonna be this huge weight on you all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. Halle?
I was raised with, if there is a will, there is a way. If you want it, we are going to go for it. If it's your passion, if it's your dream, go at it with full force. You have to know that not every day is going to be perfect, and it's going to run you ragged some days, but at the end of the day, if it's what you want, it's worth it every single time.
I love that.
And I do want to add something. I know sometimes there's certain sacrifices that you have to make, and I think Halle can definitely speak highly of that.
Oh, yeah.
I might miss dinner with friends, or knowing where your priorities are will also help you with the burnout. Knowing to say no in certain situations, but there is a little sacrifice there. But I think it's worth it, coming from my opinion.
I will back Gina up on that. The sacrifice is absolutely 100% worth it. I wouldn't change a thing about any outside thing that I missed in this life, because I did what I loved, and that's really the most important thing.
Do you think having a creative outlet is important for women in STEAM?
I would say absolutely. And I think that if it's something that's a part of you, that you feel is a part of you, I don't think you should have to forego one or the other to make ends meet. I think that there's a way, and I think it's important to have that side. If that's something that's really a part of you and something that you really thrive on, you don't want to ever lose that, because then it can also be detrimental to what you're not foregoing, and so it kind of plays on both sides.
Yeah.
Gina said it best.
Well, we'll wrap it up now then. Okay. Well, is there anything else you guys would like to talk about? Or...
I think so.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Halle and Gina, for joining us on this episode of A Girl's Guide to STEAM. And I guess if anyone is interested in getting involved at Huntsville Ballet, what is the best way to reach out to them?
You can go to our website, huntsvilleballet.org, which will take you through all of the classes available, season tickets, and as well as give us our address if you want to stop by and come see us in person. We are at 800 Regal Drive.
Perfect. Okay, well, again, thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you for joining us on this episode of A Girl's Guide to STEAM. We'll see you next time.